they were like, yes, you can, yes, you can. And I remember I grabbed my dad's by the shirt, and I pulled him closer, and I said, Dad, I can't breathe. And then he looked at my mom and said, we need to go to the hospital. Because it was something, I guess they finally believed me or something. But yeah, so I went to the hospital, and they were like, oh, his levels are way off. We don't know what this is. So they tried to stabilize me, and, it took a long time. And finally the hospital psychiatrist came in, and he's like, oh, this is serotonin syndrome. He's like, what were you prescribed? And I told him what I was prescribed and the dosage. And he said, okay, you were prescribed more than 4 times what you should have been prescribed. So that's why this happened to you. And I was like, okay. And in my head, I'm just thinking, like, when am I going to be normal again? And he just kind of, looked at me and was like, it's going to be a while till you feel right. And this isn't something I wanted to hear, because I had a great job, and, everything was going right. I mean, my job I was looking at as a career. Straight out of college, looking at it as a career. I mean, that's perfect. So I then had to, I stayed in the hospital for about a week. Then I left the hospital, and then I started getting these headaches. Just out of nowhere, these really bad headaches. And I'm talking like migraines times 10. Just really, really bad. So, I had to go to the ER a couple times, and they didn't really know what it was. And they ran a bunch of tests, and finally they said, you have something called pseudotumor cerebri, which is the equivalent of having a brain tumor without actually having a brain tumor. So there was nothing to extract, but I had all the symptoms. And some of the best neurologists in the country said that I'd have a headache on a pain scale of 8 to 10 for the rest of my life. So we tried to get into Mayo, and they said, no, that doctor was right. Listen to that doctor. And I'm like, headache on a pain scale of 8 to 10 for the rest of my life, all the time. That sucks. So, I didn't really know what to do with that information. It was just, what do you do with something like that? It's terrifying, because it's like, I'll never be better, and they wouldn't give me anything for pain. They said, basically, you're just going to have to live with it. And I was like, I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can live with this. This is too much. So, I'm in the hospital, and I was in the hospital, in and out of the hospital so many times, going to the ER, and then just, going to the ER, then going home, and then a week later going to the ER, then going home. I just kept having to go to the ER because my headache was getting so bad that I couldn't function at all. So they had to give me IV stuff to basically knock out the headache for a short period of time, just to give me some relief for a little bit. And so that's how life looked for about 2 or 3 months, just a lot of ER visits. And finally, I was at a hospital for, about 2 months, 2-3 months, something like that. And they just tried everything on me. I was just a human pincushion. Any medicine they could think of, they were trying on me. And finally, they gave me something for epilepsy, which I'm not epileptic, but they were like, there's a small chance this could work. And I'm like, okay, whatever, any chance at this point, I'll take it. So they give it to me, and it's not like just straight through an IV. Like, it's like every time you gotta take it, they stick you in the arm. So, which, whatever, I got so used to needles during that time. So they gave me that, and then about 15 to 20 minutes later, I felt extremely suicidal. And I buzzed for the nurse, and the nurse came, and I said, "Nurse, whatever medicine I just had, it's making me feel really suicidal. Like, it's making me want to jump out of that window," and I was about 11 floors up. And me, knowing myself, I didn't want to die, and I know the signs of, suicide, I know what to look for, and I was like, okay, right now I'm not thinking clearly, and I need help, I need something to, So I'm thinking they're going to IV fluid, rush it out of my system. Instead, they put me in a psych ward for a week, because I said I was suicidal, and it was because of that medication. So here I am in this psych ward, and I'm surrounded by these people, and it's so sad in there. Everyone in there is so broken. And they kept giving me that medication. They kept for about 2 days, and finally they came in, and they were going to give it to me. And I said, "You're not giving that to me. That's the reason why I feel so suicidal." I mean, I was taking bed sheets and trying to strangle myself. That medicine was making me want to commit suicide, but your body won't let you really strangle yourself. It'll just stop you. And those places are like super suicide proof. So they make sure that you can't really harm yourself. Lesson learned: get a bigger memory chip. So, like I was saying, I was in the psych ward, and the nurse came in to give me the medication that had continued to make me feel suicidal, and I told her, "I'm not taking that medication." And she goes, "No, you have to." And I said, "No, I know the law, I'm allowed to turn down medication." And she said, "No, not on this ward, you're not allowed to. We have to give it to you." And at this point, I still am 6'3", but I weighed about 260 pounds, and I just looked at her and I just said, "Ma'am, you don't have enough staff to give me that medication." And so she backed down, she didn't give it to me. And it was really an empty threat, because I'm not really a violent person, but it got her to not give it to me, and about 2 days later, the suicidal thoughts left me. Eventually, I had a great doctor that was like, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with you," and he let me go home. So I still had a really bad headache, but I was out of the psych unit, and that whole time in there, I didn't eat or drink anything. I just couldn't. It was so. I'd been in the hospital for about 2 or 3 months at that point, so the food, I just couldn't eat it anymore. So, I couldn't eat the food anymore, so I probably drank a bottle of water in that entire week. And I didn't eat any food. And, it was just a really bad week. It was the worst week of my life, being in the psych unit. And I don't wish that upon